Hi there, welcome back to AP Chemistry. My name is Jeremy Krug, and in this video, we're jumping right into topic 1.6, which is about photoelectron spectroscopy. If you're new here, welcome aboard. I hope you take a look around, and I hope you like what you see. This is the place for all things AP Chemistry. Don't forget to check out the Ultimate Review Packet. That is your source for success in AP Chemistry. That gives you all the guided notes for my videos here. And if you learned something from my video, please slam that like button. I would really appreciate it. That helps out the channel and helps get my videos out to other great chemistry students just like you. Well, as we talk about photoelectron spectroscopy, it's important to realize that the Niels Bohr model of the atom had some fundamental flaws. Because Niels Bohr, when he came up with his model of the atom, understood all the electrons in an energy level, or shell, to be identical. This essentially, this is of course not drawn to scale, but this is his fundamental idea of what an atom was like. You have the nucleus in the middle. We have the first electron shell that has 2 electrons. In this case, we have 8 electrons in the second shell. And his concept was that all 8 of those electrons were identical to each other. Well, it turns out that that's not really the case, because today in our modern technologies, we have a method of actually being able to strip these electrons away from the atom one by one to determine the successive ionization energies of an element. So we actually have evidence that this Bohr model of the atom that we see on the screen here is actually not correct. The method by which we do this is called photoelectron spectroscopy. So we can take the electrons and we can strip those electrons away one by one. And if we take that very same atom, we get a graph that looks like this. Now, that atom that we saw in the other picture had only 2 electron shells. But here we see that the photoelectron spectroscopy graph gives us 3 peaks. Well, the fact that there are 3 peaks here in our photoelectron spectroscopy graph, or PES graph, tells us that this atom has 3 what we call sublevels. And we named those sublevels, and if you were paying attention in the last topic about electron configurations, you know what those sublevels would be called. They're called 1s for the first one, and then 2s for the next one, and then 2p for the third one. If there were a fourth one, you know it would be called 3s, right? There's an order with which we label these. And we just label these in order from left to right, 1s, 2s, and 2p. Now, the last peak that we see here, the one that's the 2p peak, has the lowest ionization energy. And we can see that by looking at the numbers on the x-axis here. We see that the ionization energy for the last electrons are about 2.08 megajoules, or 2.08 million joules per mole. Now that sounds like a lot, but that's a whole lot less than, let's say, this first peak here, 84 million joules per mole, to remove those inner core electrons, the 1s electrons. And like we say, those last electrons, those outermost electrons, are the easiest to remove. And so that's why they have the lowest ionization energy. The height of the peaks are going to represent the number of electrons in that sublevel. So we know just from writing electron configurations in the last video that 1s is 1s2, isn't it? So we know that this peak right here is a 2, and then this 2s peak is also a 2 since it has the same height. But notice that this last peak is 3 times taller. So since it's 3 times taller, it must have 3 times as many electrons. 2 times 3 is 6, so that's why we say it's 2p6. And if you can write an electron configuration, you can interpret a PES diagram, because we know that if the electron configuration is 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, well, you can look right at the periodic table and see that we're talking about the element neon for this diagram right here. So this is how we can interpret a photoelectron spectroscopy diagram. Let's try another one. Let's say we have this PES diagram right here. Now, let's start by labeling each peak with the corresponding sublevel. It works just like it did in the last example. It goes 1s for the first one, and then 2s for the second one, and then 2p for the next one. If there were a fourth peak, that would be 3s, wouldn't it? And what's after 3s? Well, 3p. It can just keep going and going, can't it? Well, we only have 3 peaks here. State how many electrons are in each sublevel. Well, we know that 1s is 1s2, isn't it? And then the 2s peak is the same height, so it's also 2s2. This time, though, notice that the 2p peak is half as high as the s peak. So how many electrons would that one have? Well, half of 2, so it only has 1 electron. So that's 2p1. Now, identify the element. Well, if you know how to write an electron configuration, you can identify the element. We just look at that electron configuration, 1s2, 2s2, 2p1, and we can match that up with the periodic table and say that we're talking about the element boron for this one here. It has 5 electrons total. That sounds like boron's ground state configuration. Now let's take this one step further. Let's try this problem. Let's calculate the first ionization energy per electron for this element in joules per electron. Well, how do we do that? Well, all we have to do is realize that the first ionization energy is referring to the very last electron, that outermost electron. And so that would be this last peak right here. And notice that its ionization energy is 0.80 megajoules per mole. So all we have to do is take that value right there, the 0.80 megajoules or million joules per mole, and convert that to joules per electron. So in my conversion factor, I'm going to start by converting megajoules to joules. So I have to put megajoules on the bottom, so it'll cancel, and joules on the top. Now we know that the SI prefix mega means a million, doesn't it? So that means that there are 1 million joules in 1 megajoule. So I can cancel megajoules top and bottom. If I were to stop here, I'd be in joules per mole, wouldn't I? But I don't want to be in joules per mole. I want to be in joules per electron. So that's why I have to convert moles to electrons. So in my next conversion factor, I'm going to put moles up on the top. That way it'll cancel top and bottom. And I have to put electrons on the bottom. I know that there are about 6.022 or 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd of anything in a mole, right? So the same thing here, there's 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd electrons in 1 mole. So I can cancel moles top and bottom, and all I have to do is take my calculator and key in 0.80 times a million divided by Avogadro's number, and I find that the value is about 1.3 times 10 to the negative 18th joules per electron. So that's how we can convert from megajoules per mole to joules per electron, as we see here in our problem. Let's try another one. Here we have another PES diagram, and the question says label the photoelectron spectroscopy diagram for this element and then identify the element. So like I said earlier, if you can write an electron configuration, you can label a PES diagram. It just goes in order. We start with 1s, and then 2s, and then 2p, and then we have 3s, and then 3p. And I bet you know what's after 3p, right? It's 4s. So we've labeled the peaks. Now we have to label the heights. We know that all of those s peaks are of the same height. And we associate s peaks with having 2 electrons, don't we? And then the p peaks, notice that both of those p peaks are 3 times as high as the s peaks. So that means they have 3 times as many electrons, don't they? So 2 times 3 is 6. So here is the electron configuration for this element. Now, what element is that? What element ends with 4s2? Well, we know that that is calcium by consulting the periodic table, don't we? So that's how we can label photoelectron spectroscopy diagrams and identify the element that we're looking at. So once again, if you know how to write an electron configuration, you can do this. Now let's try a more advanced example. Let's imagine that we have these 2 photoelectron spectroscopy diagrams right here. Now, to the untrained eye, it may look like they are identical. You might look at that and say, well, that sure looks like 1s2, 2s2, 2p, 6. For both of those, maybe it's the same element, but are they actually identical to each other? And the fact is they're not, because we notice that even though the peaks and the heights are basically the same, notice that they are at different places on the x-axis. For example, this first peak on the first graph is somewhere a little bit less than 100 megajoules per mole, whereas on the second graph, it's a little bit higher than 100 megajoules per mole. So they're not the same species here. They're not the same substance that we're talking about. Now, the peaks and the heights seem to be the same, so we can say that they have the same electron configuration. We can say that these two species are isoelectronic. That means that they have the same electron configuration, but there's something different about them, right? What if I were to tell you that one of these graphs represents neon and the other one represents the sodium positive cation? Well, they both have the same electron configuration. They both have 10 electrons, but which one is neon and which one is sodium? Well, this is where it comes down to the protons, okay? Because one thing that we've learned already is that the more protons an atom has, the more it's going to pull in those electrons, isn't it? And so that tells us that the more protons that an atom has, the greater the binding energy is going to be. And notice that the binding energy is greater on the second graph right here. You know, the first one is a little bit less than 100. The second graph is a little bit higher than 100. And we can see the same things on some of those other peaks as well. So this tells us that the second graph must have more protons. The first graph has fewer protons. So that means that the first graph must be neon and the second graph must be the sodium cation. So that's how we can interpret PES diagrams. Hey, I hope you learned something from this video. If you did, please smash that like button. I would really appreciate it. That gets my videos out to other great chemistry students just like you. In the next video, we're going to continue and take a look at topic 1.7. I'll see you then.